Hello everyone, I'm here in the forest on a quiet place because it's a bit windy, so I hope you can hear me now. And this is a video in the series of Global Awakening, the next step in human evolution, about the book I've written, The Master of Destruction. And maybe in this video I step ahead of things a bit, but I realized the importance of it, so I'm going to speak about it while it's in my head, because after the awakening you need some time to integrate, and because you lose you seem to lose your identity. Yeah, that sounds a bit strange, but your false personality falls away, so your normal behavior is also a bit confused, because the things you normally tend to do, because you're for a big deal programmed in that way, just fall away, or they are still there. The body reacts to certain things, but you're observing it from behind, like you're in the middle of a deep ocean, and it's really quiet and peaceful and wonderful, and but there's also the waves, and sometimes it can storm up there. And when we were identified with ourselves, we were more in the storm part. So the waves go up and down and up and down, and then you are afraid when the waves are high, and are scared when there is no wind and the sails don't catch wind, so you can't get ahead. As a sort of a metaphor for saying, talking about the situation in the world where everything is sort of fluctuating. But that's why we get certain moods and fears, and a lot of our actions is fear driven. So that sort of relaxes because you're not so attached to your to the three-dimensional experience. Let I say it like this. So you fall in the fourth or in the fifth dimension, where all the pieces and the oneness and the connectedness and the knowing of infinity, not knowing, but the knowingness of infinity, that it is there. And but what happens then? We are still here in the 3D world, and some of us have jobs, some of us have a relationship, and what can happen is that the job you have is something you totally cannot relate to anymore, because it's so far away from your inner nature that it's impossible to do it. So, for instance, I was a gossip reporter after I written some books, and I sort of got tempted to write for a gossip magazine because it made a lot of money. So that's already a fear-based thought. But yeah, you can say, well, you always have to do what you like, but the world isn't not always such a paradise. But okay, I neglected my inner voice, and that got me away from who I really am. And so, wait, and so I couldn't be myself anymore, because I had to lie and to invent a lot of stories and hurt people by writing stories that maybe were a little true, but I blow them up. So for instance, you can write about a famous person. Yeah, why don't we see them with their partner anymore? Is there something going wrong? And then you spread the seed of doubt, and they're always gonna notice that, because people are approaching them and saying, hey, is something going wrong? Because I read something in the paper, and then it goes on and on. And it can end in a divorce. I've seen that happen. So I couldn't do that anymore, not so much out of a moral decision, but my body really stopped writing the gossip for one way or another. So I sort of automatically started to write some poetry. Well, I know I written some poetry when I was young, and I know if you want to be poor, you have to start writing poetry because nobody's interested in it, and you don't sell it, especially in a country like Holland where there are only 16 or 17 million people. And well, yeah, who's reading poetry? But okay, what am I trying to say now? Oh yeah, so suddenly you awaken and your whole, you feel liberated, you feel ecstatic. Well, actually it's more an inner silence and an inner emptiness that isn't empty, but I go into that another time. But you cannot betray your inner self anymore after that. At least it's very hard, and if you do it, you build up an identity again, and then before you know it, you are a contracted version of yourself again, an unhappy, depressed, contracted version. So you don't want that. Yeah, and it's once you're awakened, it's impossible to stop it. Impossible. Of course, you can make choices, but they cannot hold on. Yeah, for instance, if you have a relationship and it's sort of a karmic relationship, that is a repetition of the experience you had with your parents, like then you want to make up the things you missed in your childhood with your partner. So you choose someone that is like your mother or like your father, and you think what is love is what you have seen them playing out. But when you awaken, you see right through that, so you don't fall anymore for the normal triggers. The shadow sides are suddenly in the light, in the awareness. So so when your partner gets angry, then you start sort of you can start laughing and you don't react anymore. Of course, they can always find ways to push you and to pull you, but it makes it very hard to communicate about that with them, because sometimes they don't want to work on that, because it's very painful if you work on your shadow sides, because it's the things you pushed away inside, and there's a lot of pain attached to that. Of course, it is not so bad when you confront it and when you stay with the pain, then it's not a life-threatening situation, but it's really hard to explain that to someone who is still totally identified with their personality and everything, all the acts and that are built upon that. So it's a sort of a house of cards that can fall apart when you push against it. And when you're stable in the awakening, you feel at ease and more carried by life, but that can also feel sort of threatening by the partners. So, and there's another thing. When I had that especially after a Kundalini awakening. When I had an awakening, I thought I was enlightened. I thought I was there, and that is, I can understand people experience it like that, because in the emptiness, yeah, what more can there be than emptiness and nothingness? And it is not nothingness, but that is so hard to explain. But a year after that, I had a Kundalini experience. And yeah, I think that's a sort of a embodiment. You're getting sort of back in the body, because the awakening is more sort of a mental thing, and the Kundalini is yeah, a total reset of all the body structures and cells and neurons. And but what happens then is that the subconsciousness, the door to the subconsciousness opens up. So all the pushed away stuff that is in the cells for your lifetime, and maybe also stuff that is in your genes that you inherited from your parents and that they inherited from their parents, can come up. Also stuff about former lives, if that is, yeah, I've had that also. And I had that also when I took stuff like psychedelics, magic mushrooms, ayahuasca, peyote, mescaline. But always a bit, gotta look around if no one's there. So oh yeah, so I was a bit used of what I have seen, because you can see really hellish visions. It can be beautiful and heavenly and wonderful, but you can also go through hell, and that is part of the healing, because all kind of twisted energetic lumps get open up, so the energy can start flowing to the body again. So then you get healed, but before you get healed, you have to sort of get through that misery. So you have to let it dissolve inside your body and stay with it, because the attention sort of takes care of that transformation. Yeah, it's sort of an alchemic alchemy, I don't know how to pronounce that word exactly. A transformation from the negative emotions. Well, I say negative, but it's more the blocked emotions, because in fact it's a sort of defense mechanism, a survival mechanism, why you got that, and why you shut yourself off from the world, so you wouldn't be so vulnerable anymore. But all that stuff can come up, and sometimes it is very hard to function. Like I said, after the awakening, it's really hard to do a job that is totally out of your soul path. Your relation you can get in trouble. Your parents don't recognize you anymore. Your friends, yeah. You want to talk about the experience because you want to share it, because it's so amazing, and you really want to have people, because you realize that's what we all are here for. You realize that, and it seems so close and it seems so easy, but it's so difficult to explain, because when you're gonna talk about it, they just don't know what you are talking about. Yeah, and I had the same until that ping, and suddenly that light goes on, and suddenly you recognize in all the religious writings, they're all pointing at the same stuff. Also in poetry, and it's a certain yeah, sacred geometry behind everything, and an intelligence that carries everything, a sort of love energy, and that energy is in us, and we are that, and everything is that. And but yeah, when you're starting to talk like that suddenly against your parents and your friends or your wife, they start to worry. And maybe there's reason to, because yeah, for some time you can be really ungrounded. So, and then you can also cut yourself off from your body. That's very tempting, because you can stay in that void, or at least that's how I experienced it. And when you come back in the body, that feels really like you're in a sort of a really tight glove, or in the, yeah, how do you call that white stuff when your arm breaks? The white stuff that gets hard, gips they call it in Holland. That's how it feels. But that is the whole idea, because we are here to integrate that. The whole package is part of it. But then we are So if the door to the subconscious opens, all these emotions starts to move through your body. You can have visions, you can have relive situations from your youth. You can, and then the nice thing is that you can put them in perspective. So you see, it was not so personal. It was not your fault that someone was angry against you. Why you shut yourself up after that? Mm, but because you see, it's the other person, and yeah, you can see it from, you can see it, you can see yourself, you can see the emotions from others, you can see the surroundings, and you can see the effect it has on you and on the other, and how in the mirroring we every time get confronted with parts of ourselves that wants to be revealed. Um, so it's also that the world is also creating situations that confront us. So for instance, I'm writing a book now. I've written a book and I'm helping people with Kundalini because it was, I noticed it was contagious. When people were around me, they also get that feeling, and it's really a feeling of love energy, but it can move so much things and put life from people so upside down that it can create a lot of trouble. You can fall in love with someone, or you can think that you fall in love, and but actually it's a sort of recognition of the heart, of the soul, of yourself in the other. So yeah, really life becomes a celebration. But you have to know how to handle with it. Oh yeah, and this is the point where I want to go to. I want, so maybe people can show this to their parents or their friends or their family or their work, that they are not going crazy. Yeah, maybe when they see me here, then they say, yeah, well, but he's totally crazy. But I can really function very normal. I have a capacity to learn much more. I started to speak English while that was not so good. I couldn't learn much when I was young because I had ADHD, attention deficit disorder, and also Tourette syndrome. Um, you know, I hear some voices. Yeah. Well, they're just walking. So, and all that stuff had also a sort of psychosomatic. It happens in a sort of, after a sort of a trauma. You realize then, and slowly that dissolves, and the pain that is attached to that rises up, and you want to push it away because that's normal. But what you have to do is stay with it, and then it heals. And yeah, after your awakening, that's also something you think, hey, after years suddenly you can start having those feelings again for a period. But it's, of course, it's an endless from the beginning of time of the universe, even though maybe there is no time, but there is an evolutionary process from the beginning of the cells to where we are now. um, but that is all inside of you, it's all here and now. So sometimes it's a bit too much to cope with, and people need time to integrate that. So yeah, what I would want to do, because I realize now that friends of mine who ended up in a madhouse after using drugs or just recreational had sometimes insights and sort of a loss of identity, and they got scared, and because of they got scared, they got sort of schizophrenic or split up, or and then they gave them pills. Well, actually, there was a sort of a transformation going on towards their real self. It feels like dying, because it's sort of, when you plant a seed, it has to break to open up. And when you awaken, especially when the Kundalini awakens, it feels like the seed inside you is breaking up, and something starts to flower. The chakras open up. Also something that I thought that didn't exist, because I thought it was some sort of metaphorical thing, but you really experience that. And yeah, it's a wonderful thing. I think it's the same, like I also written that in the book, like a caterpillar that becomes a butterfly, and we identify ourselves with the caterpillar. And it's not so much an outside transformation, but it's more, yeah, it's not so visible in the 3D dimension, because it's more refined and from energy that we cannot perceive here normally. So yeah, I want to wrap this up now, this video, by saying that I really, because I had some experience when I was young, I can cope with it, with the anger, and I could put it in perspective. And also with sex, because I had a lot of experiments, but that's also because the energy can be so strong that you cannot have the feeling that you go nuts from anger or sexual drive or whatever. But if you want to restrict that, then you create friction, and then you create suffering. So yeah, that is actually not what you have to want to do, because then you cannot heal, and then you create another more perverted, more darker aspect of yourself, with a shadow, repressed shadow version. Yeah, and it's not necessary, because it's so, this knowledge is so obtainable, but it's pushed so far away in our society, that's really a sad thing. So what I want to say is that I hope to, and I know it's in England, there is a spiritual emergency center. So you can call that, and you can go there, and you can they take care of you, or you can write them and they understand you from all over the world. But what I not know, I think it's also in America, because it's what's his name, Stanislav Grof. I think he opened that. So, but what we really need really, like with sort of a AA clinics, we need to have that in more places, in more countries, and there needs to be more, create more attention for this, because people are waking up massively, and we're gonna have a real awakening wave, and it's really important that people get assistance, get help, and feel safe, because it can. Oh, I thought it stopped. It can also create that people get so scared of themselves that they think I have to commit suicide, because that's the only way they think they can regain the control of themselves back again. Of course, that's totally wrong. And if you say to them, well, it's okay, let it go, it's safe, and you're safe, and it's normal, then it's a matter of days or hours or maybe minutes before they heal. And it's so sad to see people going under from that, or see people in because there's also a lot of stress, financial stress. We don't want to lose our wives, we don't want to hurt our families, we don't want, so it's very complicated, and help in there is needed. So yeah, my so I hope this video helps people, and I'm going to send this video also to a program what I watch a lot, Buddha at the Gas Pump. And I must say that it helped me a lot, because when I awakened I thought I was crazy, because I was thinking, yeah, you got Buddha, you got Jesus, and then you got an Eckhart Tolle, that's what I've heard of, and then you got me. That's impossible, because I'm the last person that can awaken. I'm the person that would, yeah, no. So, but inside, while I was thinking that, I was realizing that it was true, because it's more real than the reality we live in now. So, and then I started looking on internet, and I came at a program Buddha at the Gas Bomb, and I said, well, and I said to my wife, look, there are more people um, awakened. So that was a total relief for me. Look, and there was a woman, what's her name? She's from the Advaita, and they are more in the first awakening, the transcendence of duality. It's all true, but we live in a dual world here, in a linear situation. But I said to my wife, watch, and I was, while she was watching her, I was thinking, yeah, well, she explains it so good that she is going to be awakened while watching it. But she fell asleep, and I, the same way that I fell asleep when my wife took me to Rotterdam to Eckhart Tolle, he was there, and I couldn't concentrate then. I think that's the ego resisting to it, but, well, I can say that it helped me a lot, the Buddha at the Gas Pump, and I also met a lot of awakened people. That's also such great fun, the recognition, and yeah. So that's so happy, because I can imagine that in the older days when people awakened, and they and nobody understand what they talk about, and they couldn't find someone like them. That must be terrible. I think, yeah. Or not, maybe you find a way to cope with it, but it's so nice to share it. It's so, that is not a sort of, that is a sort of inner drive, and I think we all have that after the awakening, because we are love, and the source of love just want to give, and in the giving, because it's an endless source, so it's an explosion of love. In the giving, you get more yourself. It's not for something, but it's really, it's something totally spontaneous. And when you say it to people, it's just like you say, hey, here is the key to a closet, how do you call that, where money is safe in your house, and take this key, open this, because there's so much money in there that you can relax for the rest of your life. And the strange thing, they always start laughing, and they don't take the key, they don't even watch, they don't even take the minute to look in if there is actually a safe in their house. And you can't do it for themselves, because in the end you can guide them, but they have to do it themselves, or do nothing. But well, it's very difficult. But now I'm gonna end it up, because it's going to rain here, and yeah, I hope to see you next time. Okay, nice talking to you. Bye bye.